Senator Kelly Ayotte is a member of the Armed Services Committee and part of a bipartisan Senate move now to condemn Russia for arming the Assad regime. She joins me now from the Senate. Senator, thank you very much for being with us. Where do you stand now? Mitt Romney has called for arming the rebels. Hillary Clinton has resisted that, strongly resisted that, but is blaming Russia for helicopters that the State Department again today said are en route to Syria. What is the Senate going to do?
Well, I can tell you right now, first of all, what Secretary Clinton said yesterday, I fully agree with her. It's outrageous that Russia is providing these attack helicopters to Syria. But let's not forget, Andrea, they have been the #1 arms supplier to the Assad regime. They continue to do it. They've blocked UN resolutions. And in addition to that, Russians are on the ground helping train the Syrian army. And so if they're going to continue this tactic, instead of being productive and helping resolve this, I mean, let's not forget, innocent children and women are being murdered there. The UN reports that children are being used by the Assad regime as human shields. This is very, very outrageous what the Russians are doing. And we're not going to be left with a choice if the Russians continue to fuel the Assad regime with helicopters and arms to murder its people, that we have to get greater involvement in it. And so the Russians should back off now because they are escalating this conflict tremendously.
You've been very close with the Romney campaign. You're on the list, everybody says, to be considered for vice president. Do you agree with Romney foreign policy advisor John Bolton, who wrote in the National Review that we should basically tell the Russians in no uncertain terms they can forget about any kind of sustained good relations with the United States as long as it continues to back Assad? He continued to say that we should resume full-scale, indeed accelerated efforts to construct the limited missile defense system designed by George W. Bush. We should announce our withdrawal from the New START arms control treaty, our utter disinterest in negotiations to prevent an arms race in space. Let Moscow and Beijing think about that for a while. It does sound like if you followed John Bolton's advice, former very controversial UN ambassador, of course, in the previous administration, you would, some would say, be cutting off your face, your nose to spite your face, because we would be withdrawing from arms treaties that many people believe in bipartisan administrations that people believe are good for the United States.
Well, here's where I agree with Ambassador Bolton. We need to be tougher on Russia. Right now, what we see happening in Russia is not only is Putin thumbing his nose at us in terms of providing these weapons to the Assad regime to murder its own people, but look at the Stalin-esque-like crackdowns on his own people in terms of putting people in jail just for speaking out. It's really outrageous what's happening in Russia right now, and I do think we need to be tougher with Russia because we cannot continue to condone any type of behavior by Russia in fueling the violence in Syria. And let's not lose sight that they have also cooperated with Cuba, Venezuela, or other bad actors around the world, including they've been part of helping Iran with their nuclear program, and they should be tougher on Iran as well.
Well, there has been some progress on that front. Russia has joined in on some of the agreements for sanctions and some of the negotiations. But aside from Iran, should President Obama be meeting with Russian President Putin next week? Do you think he should be canceling the meeting at the G20, or should he simply be going to that meeting and taking a harder line?
I think that he should go to the meeting and take a very, very hard line with Putin and be very clear to him that we are not going to accept Russia continuing to send arms to Syria, and that there'll be grave consequences to our relationship if they continue that. The president does need to get tough with Putin because we've seen that the reset that the president had hoped with Russia has not succeeded.
Senator Ayotte, thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Andrea.
And up next, will Jamie Dimon's testimony